Welcome to the world's greatest minds, where the most successful, impactful, and creative game changers on the planet deliver their hardest-hitting advice in 30 minutes or less. Every guest is specifically handpicked, there's no paid placements allowed, and every conversation is completely authentic and entirely unscripted. Big ideas, raw conversations, and real impact. This is World's Greatest Minds, and the revolution of thought starts now.
Hi, welcome back to the World's Greatest Minds podcast. I'm Perry Belcher. I'll be your host. If you've not been here before, the World's Greatest Mind interviews some of the smartest, brightest people that we can find on the planet to come on here and ask them some of their secrets, some of their big mistakes, their wins, their losses, some background to them, what they're doing now, and what they can do to help you maybe grow your business, make your life better, or whatever it is that you're looking for that they may be able to offer to you. Today, we have a special guest, Matt Nye, with us. Matt, I've known for quite a while now. He's been a mastermind member of ours and a friend. He's a very, very bright guy. He contributes a great deal to our group. Everybody likes him. Everybody respects him. And I get to learn a lot more about him today along with you guys. But I know Matt to be one of the brightest guys in our group. And we have a group of about 100 super high-end entrepreneurs that meet on a quarterly basis. And Matt's typically always there, willing to share, willing to help, and always with really bright ideas. Hey, Matt, how you doing?
Doing well, thank you. And thank you for that introduction. That's high praise indeed, because there are a lot of smart people and driven. So
there are a lot of smart folks in the room there. There really are. I'm lucky to be part of it. So, welcome to World's Greatest Minds. Kind of know our format, know what we do. I kind of recap that in the beginning to get it out of the way so people know. But so for the people who don't know, tell us about you a little bit. Like, what's your background? What's your story? What are you doing now? Where'd you come from? All that sort of good goobly goop.
Yeah. So I always feel like I have a weird, disjointed story, and then I hear other people's stories, and I'm like, okay, well, maybe I'm not so odd after all. But in a nutshell, dropped out of community college to open a computer business, ended up opening the second internet provider in my hometown of Ocala, Florida back in 1995.
Really?
I was second. Yeah, I was second because the other guy beat me by 2 weeks, basically. So that was a pretty wild time to be alive, like literally dial-up internet access, 14.4, 28.8 modems, all that jazz.
I was there, buddy. Were you also building PCs and doing all that stuff?
Yeah.
Me too, man. I owned Computer Warehouse, Eastland Mall, Evansville, Indiana. I was in Evansville, Indiana when you were in Ocala. They're about the same size town, I think.
Oh, it was just a neat time to be alive. And we did, we got into networking and all that. But the way that ended was I sold the IST, and I essentially burned out on the computer business, right? So we were doing a lot of the, business networking, things like that. And I had at one point, I think a total of 20, it was even 22, 23 guys, and I was young. I was not a very good manager. That was not one of my fortes. It still is not to this day. Anyway, I ended up scaling it down to just me and 2 guys. And I made as much money, I made more money actually, with much less stress with just me and 2 guys. And then when I did finally burn out of it, a buddy of mine got me to jump into the mortgage business when that was hot. So that was early 2000s. I got a mortgage license. I did a mortgage brokerage. I did 2 title companies. And I rode that roller coaster straight to the bottom in 2008. Crash, burn, lost everything, house, car, motorcycle, everything gone. Literally had to start from scratch. In
a recurring theme in this group. It is a recurring theme. People have had highs and lows. It's the distance between the highs and the lows is the only thing that changes. If you stick with it, the distance between typically gets longer.
Yeah. And it was just, I look back and I was fortunate in the sense that I handled it pretty well, right? We had guys in our state mortgage broker association that literally committed suicide because they had gone from millions of dollars a year in income to, like somebody turned off this spigot to zero, right? And so I ended up, because of my background in IT, I knew guys that were going to wait tables and things, right? Like they were working at restaurants or whatever. So I went back to IT. I took a job at a retail computer store, and I'll never forget, it was a franchise. And the guy that bought the franchise, he was a retired IBM guy, and he's looking at my resume and he's like, what the F are you doing here? Like what? And I just gave him, I just say, hey man, here's what's happening. Like I got to be able to put gas in the car, right?
Like I got right. You got to eat.
And so I did that for, I don't know, it was like 4 or 5 months. And then a buddy of mine that used to work for my computer business in the way back said, hey, we just picked up this new voice over IP phone technology, a really need some help building this part of the business out. And so I did that for almost a decade. I did huge enterprise voice over IP phone systems. And again, this is in the way back.
They made a lot of money back then. I remember having to pay those bills, and they were just atrocious. And the systems were crazy. It's Merlin, weren't they?
That was even before. Yeah, that was even before. So the one we did was called ShoreTel. They were the first. Well, there was a platform called 3Com. They made networking equipment. They technically had the very first what they call pure voice over IP solution. And then ShoreTel had like the most elegant, right? So 3Com was like the initial pioneer, and then ShoreTel kind of perfected it. And I did all the government RFPs, we did cities, we did school boards. I think the biggest deal I did was like 1.4 mil in one shot it was Martin County schools. And I think they still have that to this day.
What's the ongoing after that, right? So you get the
they have a support agreement. Like unfortunately on the ShoreTel, the maintenance was not like what we would in the marketing world, we would not consider it a great continuity model, right? But it was a significant revenue item for that business. And so bottom line was I ended up burning out on that, right? It was more of a traditional sales, I would do bigger and bigger deals, and the quotas would just go up and up and up. And so I pivoted back to financial services. I always liked the mortgage stuff, all that. So in 2019, I got my insurance license. I sold a really cool debt. It was a basically cloud-based debt consolidation acceleration type program, where you could, essentially pay off mortgages, and you take a 30-year mortgage down to 7 years. You see a lot of guys now marketing that concept. Yeah. The velocity, banking types of things. So I've just always been interested in that. And in order to do that effectively, I had to teach myself digital marketing, right? Like, hey, how am I going to get leads? And so I actually started off hiring an agency, but ended up learning it on my own. And then now I do my own financial services practice, right? So I've got, we do leverage cash value strategies, tax strategy, all of that. But I also do marketing for some really awesome people in that space. So it's really
fantastic. So would you say now your bulk of your business is actually marketing other people's financial services?
Yeah.
Is that the bulk of it?
Exactly. Yeah. Right.
And then
I pretty much do deals. The financial, I just do whatever falls in my lap, right? Like I'll end up meeting someone and, do an insurance deal here or a tax plan there. But yeah, bulk of it is marketing.
And marketing is any particular kind of financial service? Are there CFPs? What are they?
Most of the guys that I work with are doing, so like one of the companies, they have they call it a certified tax and business advisor program. And basically their model is they teach financial advisors how to lead with tax planning, because when you lead with the tax planning conversation, one, it's way more interesting than telling somebody you're, life insurance person, right? Yeah. Like the joke is if you're on a plane and you don't want somebody to talk to you when they ask you what you do,
you're an insurance agent.
That's exactly right. And conversation over, right? You'll be not be bothered the rest of the flights. So they have a really neat program. Their main attorney is a guy named Ed Line. He's very famous in that space. He was the seminal guy that created this whole concept of tax planning back 25 years ago. And he's a brilliant presenter. So he does all their training and I help them market that. I built their high level, all the tech stuff. Cause again, I have a heavy, background in tech too. So that's one example, teaching mostly financial advisors and insurance people to leverage the tax planning component. And then the other ones I work with primarily do some advanced capital gains, mitigation, trust strategies, things like that. Anything that comes into play, typically selling real estate or selling a business.
You've done extraordinarily well. And it sounds like in every business you've been in, you've done pretty doggone well. You've adapted to those businesses. Well, you've caught a trend.
Excluding the crash and burn in 2008, right?
You're skipping, unless you're skipping the turds, which I oftentimes do. When I'm telling this story, you don't tell. So, every now and then it's good to tell a train wreck story, right? I guess that's what I'll, before I ask you the train wreck story, which I'll get to that, like what do you think the biggest win you've ever had is, and why do you think that win was such a win?
Honestly, like, I hate to just make it the sales story, but that one deal I referenced for Martin County for the government, it took me 5 years to close that. And like, so in the context of like the law, like the most, that wasn't the most money, but it was the most fulfilling probably, or one of the most fulfilling, just because I was able to take something for that period of time and maintain the relationship and get through all the procurement hurdles. And it was a lot of moving parts on that one
What do you
particular
think that
deal.
made you successful in that? What do you think caused you to win that? Your success?
Combination of, knowledge. Main thing was authenticity and integrity. Like as far as I, the guy that I was working with on on their IT side just knew, like, I knew my stuff. The company was reputable. He knew I was, totally above board. Like I think it was really an authenticity, integrity kind of thing to maintain that, through 5 years.
You got a little gray in your beard there. I don't. If you'll notice, I have no gray in my beard. I figured out that was what's making me look so damn old, other than just being so damn old, right? So I shaved it off. So as you get a little bit older, it seems like we develop these rules for ourselves where I'm always going to do this and I'm never going to do that, right?
Right.
What's Matt's like rules of life, rules of business engagement, things like that?
Well,
What do you say that this is my North Star? I always do this.
what's right by, and it's honestly, I think, very similar to the philosophy I've heard you espouse, right? Always do right by the client. Like for me, it doesn't matter whether it was tech or insurance or tax planning, the commission, whatever the compensation is never a factor in doing what's right for the client. Right. It's always client first. Like what's the problem? What's the goal? What are we trying to solve? This is what's best for you. And does Matt make any money? Hopefully,
Hopefully he
but
does.
not. Yeah, hopefully, but that's not the primary driver. And I think that just comes through, just always do right by the client, right? Whatever the best possible solution is for them. Again,
It seems
doesn't
like
matter
now
if it's
more than, I'm sure it's always been around, but it seems like now more than ever, business owners, entrepreneurs, marketers, whoever you want to call them, they're all trying to short the cycle. They're all trying to, and I own growthhacking.com. So I'm perpetuating that to some extent. Right. But there's right ways to accelerate the cycle, but they're wanting to, I always say they're wanting to, they want to sleep together on the first date. They're really going super, super, super fast. Do you find that's an advantage to you when you're competing with those people?
well, yes, a little bit. And I mean, honestly, for the clients that we're helping, the marketing, it's hard, like, especially like if you're talking about a capital gains tax strategy that's revolving around, the close is, you have no control over whether they close that real estate or that business, right? So it could be exactly the scenario I had with the 5-year, school system, right? Where you could have somebody in the pipe for a year or 2 years because the business deal falls apart or the property doesn't close. And so in that case, you can't shortcut. I can definitely say I talk to advisors probably twice a week, and a bunch of them at these trainings that I do where they have been thoroughly screwed, right, by unethical marketing people, right? In fact, I had dinner with a guy night before last who said he had spent about 200 grand with one agency over the course of, it was just shy of a year. And he basically had no ROI, to speak
Ethical
of.
marketing is kind of like jumbo shrimp. It's sort of a,
Exactly.
right,
Right.
or
Oxymoron.
military intelligence, right? Switching the gears a little bit, like, what have you really screwed up? And on the other side of the rules, what are Matt's I'm never going to do that again rules? What have you really screwed up in the past? How'd you screw it up? And how could people learn?
So I'll pivot. I don't know if this is what you're looking for, but I'll tell you, I spent a lot of time getting involved in politics and like running for office and doing grassroots. And part of me wishes I could have some of that time back, right? Like, so I don't know if screw up is the right word, but I'll say that I let my focus be on something that not only didn't end up redounding to my benefit, but in a couple of cases, like literally cost me money because I lost business deals over, I was very outspoken about county government and things like that. And so once the county, we finally got them to go to RFP on their phone stuff, guess whose bid went to the bottom of the list, right? Because they're like, this, that asshole Matt, right, that shows up and complains at the county meeting. So probably I learned a lot from that experience. There was a ton of good things that came from it, but the amount of time that I invested in all of that, part of me wishes I could get some of that back.
Hard to create a great deal of affect as well, right?
So
really is.
I think the focus, basically it just goes back to, keeping your eye on the prize. Don't get distracted because you're, frustrated and think you're going to change the world, because it doesn't normally work out well. Unless you're, what's his name? Javier Milei just swept in Argentina, right?
And he's a good looking fella too, so yeah, I'm
The
joking.
chainsaw did it for me. He had me at the chainsaw.
So I know that you and I've had some interesting conversations before. That what do you feel like, speaking to the world, and I don't ask this of everybody, but I think it's a good thing to ask. What are your probably top 3 predictions for the next 3 years?
Man,
Economically, socially, culturally. I know you think about this a lot. I know you have a lot of intel on this, and I'm not holding you to, obviously we're not holding you to it. I make a lot of these predictions too, and I'm wrong plenty of times. But I think that thinking people do have predictions, and I know that it also, I'd be curious too, what are your predictions and how much is that guiding you in what you're doing next?
yeah, I mean, the biggie, obviously, and you know this very well. I mean, you've done presentations on it, is the speed and the quality that AI is moving at. I work with these financial advisors and, basically all these knowledge professionals, and the vast majority don't seem to believe that the AI is going to be able to do their job, right? And
Except for the ones that don't have a job anymore.
it's gonna,
Which
yeah,
is a
I
lot,
mean,
right?
yeah, you can, anyway. So I honestly don't know what the world looks like, right? As they start, right now they're not replacing people and the tech companies are doing layoffs. I don't know that I have a prediction. I don't know what does it look like. And I actually was playing around. It's been many months ago, but I think it was Grok or probably Grok. And I'm trying to think, is it Say's law? I think it's supply creates its own demand, is Jean-Baptiste Say. He's one of the French economists. And I basically asked Grok, I'm like, hey, will Say's law hold up under, AI? And the answer was basically no,
Yeah, I
because
don't
the
think so
AI is
either.
moving, like the Industrial Revolution, you had a little bit of time, right? Like you say, it was over a span of, pretty good period of time, but this is all coming so fast.
Well, supply created supply created a recycling of revenue too. It previously, whoever was doing the work that there was demand for, supply created demand. The supply side was pumping money back into the economy, and in this case, it wasn't a very tasteful comparison, but I compared AI and robotics to slavery because
Mm-hmm.
the Civil War was largely about money. The South was doing considerably better than the North was financially because they were able to produce without, you know, uh, they produced without consumption or with very little consumption. And now corporations can produce without consumption. The challenge is that the funniest story I've heard lately, and you might find it interesting, that evidently the president of Ford and the president of United Auto Workers were walking through a Ford plant. And the president of Ford said, hey, Bob, look at that line over there. They're going to build that Ford with those robots, and no human hands are going to touch that car at all.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
He said, so Bob, how are you going to get that robot to pay your union dues? And the UAW guy said, I don't know, Jim. How are you going to get him to buy a Ford? So there's really a supply and demand juggernaut that I don't know what's going to happen. Did you see the robots came out today? They released the Tesla robot today. It looks pretty.
No.
It looks pretty. The first version that came out is pretty basic, almost novel, but it's out. It's $20,000, or you can lease one for $499 a month. Isn't that funny? I don't know how many orders they took. I'd be curious to hear. But yeah, I don't know. I wish I knew. I wanted you to tell me. I thought you'd have an answer.
The only thing I've noticed, and again, I'm sure you've seen this, with the vibe coding stuff, is it, because it lowers the bar, from a skill standpoint, to be able to create applications and things like in a way that is the supply creating its own demand, right? Like that, it's not exactly what Jean-Baptiste Say had in mind, but that to me is, you have, and I know I'm sure you're doing it too, right? We're all going to do things that previously were too costly or too time consuming. Now we're going to do these things because we can, because ChatGPT or Manus or whatever can do it for, 50 or $200 a month. So there is an increase there, but no, I don't have any profound, like the whole thing is just
Rules don't apply anymore.
unprecedented. Well, and it ties into the money stuff too. I mean, we've got the Federal Reserve, we got, more debt than ever. There's no comparison in history. There's nothing to compare some of the things that we're going through.
I think you're going to see a lot of people outsourcing their decision making. I think that's the thing that I'm seeing the most. I think the AI for the general public is going to be a lot like a GPT. Is going to be a lot like a GPS. Because I thought it was funny. My girlfriend doesn't like to drive, right? She hates driving. She likes me to drive her everywhere. But we have a 16-year-old boy, and every now and then she drives him most mornings to school because he doesn't like riding the bus. So she'll drive him to school. Every morning, I've ridden with her a few times. Every morning, she gets in the car and she sets the GPS to the school. And she's been to the school
Why?
500 times, right? And it's 3 miles from the house. But every morning she sets a GPS. And I think if the GPS told her to drive into the river, she would drive into the river. It's really amazing to me. And I think people hate making decisions. So my guess is that you're going to see a lot of outsourced decision making being made by people. And to your argument about the production that gets put out, like vibe coding, all these applications are coming out like mad. It's going to be even harder for someone to make a decision. How do you pick now? When there were 3 mind mapping apps and now there are 300 mind mapping apps, who sorts that? You're probably going to have so much overload that you're just going to want somebody to give you a decision. And luckily there's Mr. GPT to do it for you.
That's a great point, right? Just the decision fatigue in and of itself.
Yeah.
That's a great,
because people hate making decisions. I used to own part of an astrology company many years ago, and they farmed out they sold their leads to those Miss Cleo line things. I was shocked. I think it was either $3,600 or $5,600 a year. The average person that uses one of those things spends $3,600 or $5,600 a year calling the phone line and saying, "Hey, Miss Cleo, I'm at the store. Should I get Cheerios or cornflakes?" And Miss Cleo would say, "Oh, definitely cornflakes." "Oh, thank you so much." They didn't have to make a decision. They didn't have to make another decision. And it's amazing. So, well, let me ask you this. So 2 questions I always like to ask. So number 1, what could you use help with? If somebody's on here, we get a lot of smart people on here. What could you use help with? If we can connect you to somebody, or if there's somebody watching this podcast who wants to connect with Matt, what could you use help with? And then I'm going to ask you in a minute who you could help. So before I do that one, let's do the first one.
So I know I mentioned this in the group. My biggest challenge is just the delegation piece. And so I've been consuming Qasim's new content that he generated, which is awesome.
Is that because of control issues?
It is, yeah.
Okay.
Well, it's just so when I was in my 20s and I had that computer business and I had the ISP, I was dealing with prima donna techs that knew more than I did. Like I was basically beholden to them, right, to make sure that the company could function. And I think that like traumatized me.
Yeah.
Because I had guys that, like I had, one guy literally could have put me out of business with the ISP, just by,
I released it. I just released it. I had to about 5 or 6 years ago. I don't know the names of most of the people that work in my companies now. And that's sad. I used to think people that were like that were callous and cold and all that, but I don't know them. I don't ever talk to them. I talk to 3 people in a given day, and I guess I have about 120 people. The rest, I have no idea. And it's been so good for me. It's been so good for me, but it's hard, man. And it's really hard. The transition period is very difficult. You feel naked.
That what I'm trying to, and it is kind of a paradigm shift, but I like the analogy that Qasim uses about it's a black box, right? Treat the person like a black box, and you just tell them, here's what I want the output to be. And you shouldn't care about what happens in the middle. And because of my background in process and systems and IT and all that, like I get hung up on stuff that really does not serve me. Like you say, should I care about the naming convention or the way the guy wrote the code or whatever? Like if it comes out the other end the way I want it, why do I stress over stupid stuff like that? So,
but we do, man. We do. And it's a good way. It's a good way to stall progress too. It's a good way to not launch. It's a good way. Well, we can't launch yet because of this. We can't launch that yet because of that. Because what really is happening, we're fearing that launch being a failure.
Correct.
Right?
No, I'm telling you, your psychology, like a lot of times you're talking and I'm just literally sitting there going, okay, he's talking about you. When you talk about the perfectionism and all that, and it's
My
very
gosh.
difficult. Like it's
So hard.
hard.
And I'm still a victim of it. And I still do it. So who can you help right now? Who would you like? If people could contact you from here, I'll ask how to contact you in a minute. Who should they be? And then I've got another kind of ringer question for you, a little zinger question at the end.
Okay. So yeah, I think
Who would you like
if
to have more
you're
of?
marketing clients for the financial, so if you're a financial advisor, you've got, typically what I see if they've got 2 or 3 platforms, for example, they have 2 or 3 versions of high level because they've signed up with 2 or 3 marketing companies. They don't have any, they're just basically not managing, right? They don't have a central dashboard for everything. If you're in that boat, that's definitely somebody I can help. And then also on the cash value life side, we just have some really powerful strategies that people don't. A lot of people now have heard about infinite banking, which is very powerful. But we have some more advanced strategies where you can accumulate a lot of wealth, tax-free income for the rest of your life, and very minimal risk, right? Like indexed, zero chance of loss.
Who's the target person
So,
for that?
we typically go after, for one of them, we target people with a IRA or 401k of $500,000 or more. We get a lot of times what happens for the couple of clients I work with is they'll save somebody $500,000, $2 million in capital gains taxes. And then we're able to say, hey, if you put that over here, right, lump sum, the way we structure the strategy, and then they could be drawing, $60,000, $100,000 a year in income, after 6 or 8 years. And that comes out tax free for the rest of their life. So it's funny because I remember at one of our events, I remember you had asked, like, how many people in here are sitting on $100,000 in cash or more in their business checking account? And I literally,
Almost
I was
everyone.
thinking when everybody raised their hand, I'm like, all of those people could be in our strategy, still have access to the money because it's like, you can borrow, you can take it right back out if you need it, but they can be making, guaranteed return and have a death benefit, legacy play, all that.
Yeah. I'd like to hear more about that actually. Maybe we'll have you back on just to talk about that. I like asking this question. It's a fun question. Last one. And then I'd like for you to give contact information, how they can contact you. But if you could have lunch with anybody right now, who would it be?
It'd have to be Elon.
Have to be Elon.
Have to
Okay.
be Elon.
Why?
The dude is just freaking brilliant. And he's so fearless. Like, imagine the balls, right? It's like, hey, we're going to go to freaking Mars.
And took everything out of.
He's doing it. Like, it's
I had the
not
most
like pie in
respect.
the sky.
I had the
Yeah.
most respect from him when I learned that I think he got $150 million for his part of PayPal. He
Mhm.
put 100 million of it in Tesla, 40 million of it in SpaceX, 10 million of it in, I forget which other company, a boring company maybe, and then slept on his friends' couches.
Yeah.
That's trippy, man. I think the best definition of entrepreneur I ever heard was an entrepreneur is somebody who's willing to risk everything every day, which tells you there aren't many entrepreneurs in the world. Frankly, as we get older, we get more and more chicken, right?
For sure. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, no, but that's,
Calculated risk.
he's just amazing. I really am just in the, again, not to get too political, but I truly believe if he had not purchased Twitter, we would not have, we may not have free speech now, but it would be definitely a worse place if he had not purchased Twitter and done the X thing. So
Cool. So Matt, how do people contact Matt Nye if they want to work with you, want to talk to you, they want to have lunch with you, they want to whatever?
yeah, they can just hit my website. It's mattnye.com or Matthew. On all the socials, I'm Matthew D as in Daniel Nye. So all the socials, but you can hit my website. I've got a calendar link on there. Love to chat about either marketing or, the cash value life strategies and how we can help there.
Matt's always a good guy to talk to. He's very, very, very smart. He's respected. People like him. He's a great member of our community. We're glad to have him. And I'm so glad to have you here on World's Greatest Minds. If you enjoyed this episode, there are more episodes at worldsgreatestminds.com. You can go binge watch us, which would be really fun. My partner, Qasim Islam, does a lot of these, probably more of them than I do. I need to catch up. But we look forward to having you guys on. And if you want to be on World's Greatest Minds, there's a place to submit, I think, on the site to be a guest on here. We'd love to hear from you and find out what you have to offer the community. Thank you so much for being here, Matt. I hope you have a great afternoon. And I look forward to seeing you soon. Are you going to be in Austin with us soon?
It looks like I'm going to be there.
Great. I look forward to seeing you. Thank you so very much. Thanks to Camilla, our producer, for putting us all together today. I hope you guys have a great afternoon, and I'll see you next time on World's Greatest Minds.
You've just heard another powerful episode on World's Greatest Minds. For links, resources, and full show notes from this episode, go to worldsgreatestminds.com, where you can also subscribe so you never miss another episode, drop us a review because your feedback fuels the mission, and share this with somebody who's willing to buck the status quo. Most importantly, tell us who you think we should interview next. Nominate the people who you believe have the results, the track record, and the brilliance to truly qualify as one of the world's greatest minds. Join us weekly as we forge innovation in real time. This is World's Greatest Mind. The revolution of thought continues with you.